with our feet hip width apart, placing the hands at the back of the head. So thinking about good posture, thinking about our plumb line, that line coming up through the centre of the body. Thinking about bringing the elbows forwards and slightly pushing the head back into the hands. So we're creating an isometric contraction in the muscles at the back of the neck and the shoulders, the deep neck flexors, which is all required to have our good posture. We want the shoulders to be not up here, up around the ears. We want them drawing down towards the hips and the ribs, which slides the shoulder blades down in your back and creates a nice flat pattern. We want to send the tailbone down towards the floor a little bit, especially if you're a little bit arched in that lower back. And then we're lifting, I'm almost cupping the base of the skull with my heels of my palms to lift the head up off of the shoulders, lengthening the spine. And then I'm just gently going to rock forwards and backwards, finding the middle point for that plumb line. So in between, so my weight is now equally distributed between big toe joint, little toe joint and the heel, those 3 points. I'm aware of my arches in my feet being nice and lifted. And now I'm just going to set my torso a little bit. So when we want to work the spine, when we want to have a good spine and we're moving and we're having it, the spine is nice and healthy and strong, it needs to be in its neutral position. So that's what we're working on right now. So we've got the plumb line from the front with everything level, shoulders level, hips level. From the side we've got the natural curves. We've got the curve at the nape of the neck, the curve in the lower back. We've got those shoulder blades drawn down flat against the rib cage wall. So this is our good posture. Let's just stay here a little bit longer and just do a couple of deep breaths. So in through the nose, out through the mouth, maybe just observing, especially when you breathe out, notice that rib cage connection to the hips. It naturally happens. When we breathe in, the ribs expand. When we breathe out, the ribs draw down. We're creating our tissue box, our core stability, just getting that torso a little bit tight, not too much, just a little sense of bracing. That's what we need when we're doing our strengthening side of things and building the endurance in the muscles in the correct place. Great, let's take the arms away and place the hands spanning across your torso. So one of the most important things for active back care is to be able to use your back in everyday movements without compromising the back and without changing that shape from that neutral spine. So the hip hinge, we're just going to do a little mini hip hinge today, sending the bottom back. The hip hinge is a really, really key movement. So I've spanned my hands across my torso, my thumbs are touching my ribs, my little fingers are touching towards my hips. Fingers and thumbs spread like you do in your piano scales, so that I'm noticing that there's no change here. And then when I send my bottom back, I'm shutting a drawer or a door behind me. The only thing that's changing is this angle at the front of the hip. So you could put your hands here, little fingers tucked into that crease, and notice how when you tip forwards with your upper body, by counterbalancing and sending your bottom back, you'll change that crease. It's a hip hinge, it does what it says on the tin, it's the only bit that's moving. The weight goes back into the heels a little bit, and I'm just starting to swing slightly. So weight back into the heels, lift the toes up slightly if you can, or the whole of the front of the feet up, because you want your weight back there. Come to an upright position, and rather than driving the hips forwards, be nice and upright and see if you can just lift the heels off slightly, not all the way to a full rise. Sending the hips back, come nice and upright and raise those heels. So quite strong on the balance, but don't be too harsh on yourself if you're falling off the floor a little bit as you do this. Notice the curve at the nape of my neck isn't changing. I'm not leaving my eye line where it was. I'm not increasing that curve. I'm not getting any wrinkles at the back of my neck. Just staying the same, and it's all coming from that hip hinge position. Brilliant. We are going to, so we've talked about A neutral spine, we've talked about the hip hinge. The hip hinge is one of the 10 exercises that's absolutely key. Pushing the head into the hands is another of the 10 exercises. More to create overall good posture, but if your head is forwards here all the time, that's going to have a knock-on effect on the rest of your spine. And as we know, the position of the limbs is really key. Wonderful. Let's just take a little mobilising section. So take the feet nice and wide, slightly outside the shoulders. Let's reach up. So as much as we want the spine to be nice and strong, we also need it to be mobile and flexible. So let's reach up both hands, pitch that weight slightly forwards onto the balls of the feet, and then let the arms drop. Follow a spider along the ceiling, down the wall or the window for me in front of you, to the floor opposite you, far across the other side of the room. Follow that spider along the floor. Keep going all the way till it gets to your toes. All we've done there is the head and the neck part for the beginning of our roll down. Now I'm going to allow my shoulders to collapse. I'm keeping my torso, my pelvis, in neutral by pulling my belly button in nice and tight. Softening the knees as soon as I need to, unraveling the spine, and for this first one I'm just going to roll straight back up again. Having a sense of your spine being like a conveyor belt, so you're rolling through it, articulating through the spine, rolling back up again. Let's go again with that spider, looking up, just looking up without the arm reaches up. So we're following it along the ceiling to the wall opposite you, down the wall to the floor opposite you, and then across the floor directly, is coming straight at you till it gets level with your toes. And then what's happened there, I just turn to the side, all I've done is my head and the top of my neck, nothing else has joined in. Now I'm going to pulling my ribs back, I'm now going to allow those shoulders to round forwards, keeping the pelvis in neutral initially. When that pubic bone needs to slide back through the legs, absolutely fine, let it go, soften the knees. This time just nod your head, shake your head, straighten the knee and soften the knees a couple of times, just noticing how those hamstrings today. No hamstring stretches in today's class because we can't do everything all in one class. But as you know, if the hamstrings are really tight there, it's going to affect everything else. So in the same way we've got the forward head carriage affecting everything else, kicking everything else out, if the hamstrings are super tight and you can't just get fingertips to the floor there, then that's something that you need to work on. Brilliant. Let's take some shoulder rolls. So part of the spine being nice and healthy and active and flexible is our rib cage spine. So we're circling the elbows round as big a circle as you can. I'm going to turn sideways, but actually what I'm trying to do more than thinking about my shoulders is shift my rib cage back as the elbows come forwards, and then forwards as the elbows pin back. And my weight is just rocking forwards and backwards. I'm trying not to be too prescriptive with this today. I just want you to get that general sense. We're trying to move this rib cage spine forwards and backwards. Same thing, but just with the arms extended out. Sweeping the arms forwards, just noticing the difference with a longer lever. So you might feel that you can get that chest forwards a little bit more, almost lifting the chest. And again, we're opening up shoulders, we're going to be looking at the scapular stability in a little bit, another one of the exercises. So just moving that rib cage spine. Let's finish off with a couple more mobilisers, just general mobilising, hips going all the way round. Have a sense of your rib cage lifting off of your hips, changing direction. So the old hula hoop hip. And a lot of this stuff as well, in class, and when we're doing these exercises, we're trying to come outside of our everyday movement. So really, my floorboards are creaking quite a lot today. Really, when would you do this unless you're a big fan of hula hooping? You might be. I would demonstrate with my large hula hoop there, but I'm not very good at it, so I won't today. I'll save that for another time. And then let's go to the knees. So fingertips touching the knees, feet and knees together, sticking your bottom out. Again, so we're working in a neutral spine, we're not collapsed here, we're not putting any pressure on the knees, it's just to keep them in the same place. So feet and knees together, sticking your bottom out, fingertips just lightly touching the knees, and then you're thinking of drawing a circle, as big a circle as you can, which won't be huge, with those knees, with your hands touching your knees. And the thing that will also happen here, just keep changing direction about 4 times, 3 or 4 in each direction, and have a little look down, notice what's going on at the feet, the ankles, you're rolling to the outside edge, the inside edge, the front, the back, picking the toes up, ankles are all getting a nice bit of mobilising as well. So this is just mobilising, just trying to warm everything up. Let's finish with one more thing. Again, mobilising the spine. Thinking about the flexibility. So we've taken our roll down, we've unravelled the spine, and then we've come all the way back up. So that's the head leading down and the head finishing off the movement. Let's just come into our sumo squat. As you do that, just lift the chest. So remember your sumo squat, feet nice and wide, fingertips facing in, thumbs also facing in. That sort of international ready sports position. From there, so you just lifted the chest up, you're going to unravel your spine. The head is finishing off the movement last, and then let's round and come up. Again, it's finishing off the movement last. So we're arching the back, sticking your bottom out, rounding the back. And it should be like quite a nice wave in the spine. This is the amazing things with our spines. They are very, very strong, very, very resilient, very capable of going in all these different directions. We've got rotation to come, and one more now is our side bend. So that was like a rippling effect. It's incredible what the spine can do. So now we're just looking at some side bends. Let's take the arms out to the side and let's take a nice flowing side bend. I have to say, actually, my back is feeling not sore, but I'm very aware of all the muscles around my back today, having taught this class twice yesterday. So it's quite a strong class, so just take it easy a little bit. You'll probably be okay if you're only doing it the once. Good. So we're thinking about stretching down that side seam. Really important muscles, big muscles in the back. Again, everyday life doesn't really incorporate these stretches or this movement, but we want that strength in those muscles to support the spine. Brilliant. Okay, coming on to one leg standing. A fantastic exercise to do just for your balance, but we're going to combine that hip hinge with our one leg stand and with our balance work. I'm going to go this way because I'm going to stand on my weaker leg to start with. We're going to do 2 things. The first one is going to be thinking about the strength and keeping the spine absolutely in its neutral all the time. The second one is going to be thinking about more mobilising the spine. Both quite hard actually. So standing on one leg, you're lifting the knee into a knee fold. You're going to swing that leg back, hinge over at your hip and just pitch forwards. And then on the same side, lift the knee. If you're worried about your balance, just tap your toe to the floor, but if you can, lift the knee. Swing the leg back into a diagonal line, essentially. So the main thing here is that I'm keeping from the shape of my spine, from the top of my head to my sacrum, stays the same. It doesn't matter which part of this movement I'm in. So that's the first thing. I'm bending, and I'm going to turn this way, but I'm going to stay on the same leg. Stay on the same leg if you can, build some endurance here. I'm straightening this leg, my standing leg, when I'm upright. I'm bending the knee when I swing forward so that I get this really nice hinge at the hip. Again, as we did at the beginning when we were doing the mini hip hinges, put your hand into that crease. Notice that that's the only bit that's moving apart from the legs. Obviously the legs are moving, but the spine, the torso, that length in the spine from the crown of your head to your sacrum doesn't change. There's no collapsing, there's no changing of your eye line. Same leg, still the same, we're still trying to work on that same side. You're noticing now where you're starting to feel it a little bit. I'm on the same leg, so the other thing to think about is your tissue box. Corners of the shoulders and the hips staying really nice and level. I'm having a look in the monitor. Oh yeah, that is very tempting when that leg goes back to lift that hip. So that is really nice and square. So maybe now you would like to put both hands on both hips. Oh yeah. That's really weird in my monitor because it's not mirroring me like it normally does. So I'm not going to do that because it's freaking me out a little bit. So think of your own body. Great if you can see yourself in the mirror, but shoulders and hips absolutely square to wherever your front is. They need to stay the same. So that we're grooving this really strong spine. We're grooving this movement pattern of maintaining our neutral position and lots of lovely balance work on that standing leg. Starting to feel it a little bit now. You might be feeling it in your calf, you might be feeling it in your shin, your ankle. Ideally, you're feeling it in that buttock when you're the standing leg buttock, because that's the muscle we're trying to target. So we're swapping legs now. If you have an injury, if you have a weakness, or just a habit to always be standing on that one leg, you might find that you're not feeling it in the buttock. There might be fear of pain, there might be actual pain, there might be scar tissue, any number of reasons, but that's what we're aiming for. And it's at this point when that leg swings back and you load up that front hip. That's the point we're looking for. So remember the three things. Spine, staying absolutely in its same shape. When I look back on this, I should probably be thinking, oh no, that's just changed the shape all the time. It's quite hard to have your one hand up, one hand down. So that's our first thing. We want the spine to be in neutral. We want to hinge, if I go this side, we want to hinge from this hip. We want to hinge over that hip. Decrease this space here. So you could say it starts at 180. I can't really work that out with my hands, to show you with my hands. And then it creases less than 90 actually. I'm not very good at my degrees, but you know what I mean. And then the last thing to think about, another thing to add into this actually, so the shoulders and hips nice and square. So this is my stronger leg, and I've actually put I can touch the wall behind me now. So I'm better at keeping my hips level on this side. The other thing that I would be looking for if I was with me in class is the alignment of this knee. So no rolling in. That knee might want to roll in, it might want to roll out. The alignment of your foot, that both legs are in line with your hips. Watch that back leg doesn't swing out. All of these things going on. I've had enough of that one. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so our next one, still one leg stand, still balancing. We're going to mobilise the spine though. So we've done this one before. I'm just going to show you from the side again. This time we're going to stand on the one leg, start on your weaker leg if you know you've got one, rounding over and drawing everything in. And then we're really rounding everything, drawing everything in, but no hanging on to your leg. That's called cheating. I want to bend my standing leg. I'm really trying to create a rounded spine with my muscles rather than hanging on there. And then I'm going to take the leg forwards, round over again. We're going to go out to the side, so join in with me now. Let's do that. So we're going to go forward, side, back, side with the leg and then change over. Rounding over, forwards, rounding over to the side. So we're going from a really rounded position where you're using your muscles to create that shape, taking the leg to the back to a beautiful straight, legs, both legs straight, arms straight, spine nice and upright, rounding over, bending the knee and then everything is straight. I don't mind if you're tipping a little bit. Again, we're looking at that balance, we're looking at the brain, working it all out. On the other side, rounding over, reaching up. Balance isn't so good on this side, rounding over. Try and get as low as you can and then stretch everything out to the side. This moving leg can be touching the floor. You can touch the floor here. Well, actually, remember today's class is about your spine, so it's not about getting the leg up really high. Round over, one more, out to the side, hold it there a moment. Really feel like you're stretching to opposite sides of the room and relax. Good job. So one leg standing. Okay, so coming down to the floor, however you would like to. I'm going to do a nice controlled curtsy. You could do a shoelace lunge to come down. You might want to do a double leg squat or something. Just come down however is comfortable for you. And then we're going to be on all fours. So the next exercise is our quadruped of our 10 exercises to do for our spine health, if you like, for that active spine, active back care. From all fours, we want to be, as always, in the perfect position. And yet here again, we're repeating that neutral spine shape by keeping the chin tucked in, lifting the back of the head and neck. Shoulder blades are nice and flat against the rib cage wall. We're going to curl the toes under, or you could just push the shins down into the floor and just brace and just hold it. If you're curling the toes under, it's a little bit harder. You're going to lift the knees. You're going to hover the knees off the floor a tiny, tiny bit, hardly moving them at all. I'm just going to tuck this t-shirt in, just to show that there's no change in the spine. So I'm curling my toes under. Make sure you're pushing out a little bit, little finger side on the hands. Make sure the head isn't down here. If the head is here, that's equivalent to being here when you're standing or sitting. So we want that head to be in line. That's what the pushing the head into the hands for was at the beginning. I think that's very strange English, but anyway. Curling the toes under, lifting the knees, holding it there, bracing. So 10 times 10 second holds would be your minimum for that. We're just going to do a couple of them today. Curling the toes under. So there are no, the same way there are no hamstring stretches in today's class, or leg stretches full stop, there are no abdominals. This is enough for our abdominals. This is certainly enough for the spine. When we're bracing the abdominals, which is what we're doing here, we're supporting the spine. We're getting that torso to be working in the right position. That's why this is so, so key. So hopefully you've done one more. Let's do one more of those together. Curl the toes under, lift the knees. Hopefully you were doing those while I was talking. I do live in a fantasy world, don't I? And then we're going to look at the mobility of the spine. So a great movement is to do some spine circles, and we're going to do vertical spine circles. In fact, I will face forward. So from the forward position, I'm going to take my ribs out to the side. I'm going to lift my ribs up at the back, ribs out to the other side. Allow the ribs to drop down. I can't quite see what's going on here when I look, because when I look up I put my head in the wrong position. But hopefully you can see that my arms are staying straight-ish. Obviously my legs, my knees to my hips are staying straight because that bit can't bend. And then my rib cage, again that rib cage spine, the bit that gets the most stuck, is the bit that's shifting around within the framework of your arms and your legs. And that is a great, wonderful mobilising exercise. What are we doing next? Brace and flex and extend. Yeah, let's repeat that exercise that we did standing. So from here, bring your feet and knees together. We're going to draw one knee in, round the spine,
Take the opposite hand away and just touch your ankle or your shin. No hanging on to that leg again. Really round the spine. Extend, touching the floor, fingertips and toes, and then you're lifting to the height of the body. And again, touch the floor to brush in. Round, 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 round. Scoop that tummy in. Extend, reset your spine, especially your torso. Let's do one more on this side. Rounding over. Really, I'm really scooping my tummy in. Extend and lift. Here is my tissue box is absolutely square to the floor. Let's try the other side. Drawing in, rounding the spine, using your muscles. Extend and just brush the floor. Hold this position a moment before you lift up, so that you keep that tissue box really in a pristine shape. Oh, I was very tempted to pull my knee in then. Trying not to pull your knee in, lifting arm and leg to the height of the body if you can. Last one, rounding. It's quite hard on the balance when you're rounding here. Extending. Imagine tissue box. Lift the leg and the arm independently of that and relax. Let's take those hips all the way back on the heels. Big toes together, knees nice and wide, arms stretched out in front, slightly mad sway from side to side. And then walking the hands round to one side. Am I going to come out of the camera shot now? Towards the camera, hold it there. You're going to feel a very strong stretch down that side seam in your back, the one that where we do the stretches. And then I would like you to lift and lower. Once that stretch has eased off a little bit, lift and lower your upper back. So back pops. Then we're walking round to the other side. If this is too much, if you can't get your hips all the way back onto your heels, and you're maybe here, go as far back as you can and then put the weight onto your elbows, just so it gives you that little bit of respite there. Stretching to the side, feel that burning, it's like a burning stretch down the side seam of your torso. Allow it to ease off a little bit and then lift and lower, lift and lower. Woo. Great job, come back to the centre. Let's come down onto our elbows. So a little bit more bracing. This exercise wasn't in. Yeah, so this is basically our abdominals, but we're going to do the plank. We're going to do the plank from here. One of my clients requested this. So I'll let you thank that person when you see them, if you ask me who it is. No, I'm joking. It's fine. It's a really great exercise. Again, we're building that stamina in the core, in the endurance, switching on pelvic floor, etc., etc. So elbows underneath your shoulders. Feel like I'm a little bit too curved around. That's better. I'm going to get zoom neck if I'm not careful. Feel me neck. So elbows underneath the shoulders. Allow your chest to just collapse like you're lying on the beach somewhere, and then lift up out of the floor and be that rosebud that's perfectly, the rosebud on top of a beautiful straight stem, not the one where the rosebud has dropped off and you haven't realised till you've got the bunch of roses home. So you're there, lifting up, and then we're going to just draw the belly button tightly towards the spine. As you do that, notice pelvic floor switching on, hopefully. And then we're going to just lift the hips up so we're on our knees and our elbows. And your spine is in its natural curves. And then we're going to relax and lower. So this is very similar to the one we've just done on all fours. The bracing on all fours is exactly the same. Actually, we're just building up to a stronger exercise. Keeping those shoulders down, keeping that belly button pulling in tight. In fact, that's our initial movement. Let's go again. Belly button tight towards the spine, come up onto your knees. Holding it there. So you could just stay here. This could be the level that you wanted to work at today. If you can, if you want to work a little bit harder, curl your toes under, and then straighten one leg and let that knee drop to the floor. Straighten the other leg, let that knee drop back down. There's no change in the pelvis, no rocking and rolling from side to side. If you can't curl your toes under, you can keep your toes flat and just work through the top of your foot. If you've got bad ankles in that respect, that might not work for you. You might be better off curling your toes under. Just a few, and then relax and lower. Have a little collapse in between. Maybe, if that lower back is starting to feel a bit achy, and mine is because of the work we did yesterday, maybe stretch back again into this position, or come halfway up. Feel like you're stretching out that lower back. I'm going to add a couple more things to here. So if you're feeling it already, then just stay at the level you're at. If you want to work a little bit harder, if there's a bit of shaking going on, it's just a lack of stamina in general. So belly button to spine, the pelvic floor will activate. Lift those hips up. This time we're curling the toes under of both feet. We're straightening the legs. Now it's significantly harder. Now we're going to touch one knee to the floor and then straighten it again. Touch the other knee to the floor and straighten it. Be aware of the shape of the back of your head. So I'm looking down at my hands. Between 6 and 10 of these, you don't need to do loads of reps. Make sure you're doing it really well. I'm going to lower both knees. I'm going to relax. Have a little collapse. Last one. Exactly the same thing, we're going to be running with our legs, so rather than doing one leg at a time. So lifting the chest up, belly button to spine, coming up onto those knees, curling the toes under, straightening out the legs, and then we're touching, switching, 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 switching. Ba-da-da. Another 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, hand la ba ba. Woo. Good job. Let's come round onto our backs. Into the basic bridge position. Or into our base position, sorry, and we're going to be doing bridges. That's where I got confused there a little bit. I'm going to untuck my t-shirt now. Great, so we're going to just take a straight bridge. Now we're going to do both actually. So we're thinking about our spine, and I didn't really realise this until I started to teach this class the other day. The theme of today's class is the spine being that where we want the spine to be strong, and we also want the spine to be flexible. And the shoulder bridge works the back line of the body, particularly the glutes when we're lifting the hips up straight. And that's the strength side of it, but the articulating, the peeling shoulder bridge is the mobility in the spine, and we want that nice control. So it's a really great exercise for your spine, which is why it's included, obviously. So let's start with our peeling spine. So just have a little wiggle about on the floor. Make sure you're nice and relaxed with that, especially that lower back. We've been working quite hard. And you can sometimes, when you first lie down, feel like the arch in your back is all the way up to the front of the ribs. I'm just going to see if I can relax that a little bit. Yeah, so that's better. So now the deepest part of the curve is opposite my belly button. My ribs, all of my ribs at the back are nice and heavy. My ribs at the front are now relaxed and connected, not in too strong a way. So then we're going to tuck the pelvis under, push each vertebrae into the mat. As we peel, so we push the vertebrae in first of all, and then we peel them off the mat. And then we're going to take the arms up and over. We're going to leave the arms there. We're going to reverse peel back down, trying to sort of replace each vertebrae back on the same way it went up, if that makes sense. Imagine you've got a little bit of paint, and you know how your spine is sort of knobbly, so there'll be a gap and then there'll be a bit like the markings down the middle of the road. As you're rolling up, you're creating that dotted line, and then reverse, put each vertebrae back into the same place. You might find that there are certain areas which are a little bit more sticky than others. So let's go again. So tuck the pelvis under. Really try and push that deepest part of your lower back into the mat. Then we've got our lowest ribs. Then we've got our middle ribs. Then we're up onto our shoulder blades, the top of the shoulder blades. I always want to adjust my head here. It might be a little bit of a habit actually. Let's hold it at the top a moment, get those hips open as much as you can. Make sure glutes are activated, sending the knees over the toes. Think about the weight through your feet. I have a tendency to go to the outside of my feet and my knees roll out. Nice and even all the way around the feet. Rib cage, soften it, connect it even more once you get those hips up. Arms up and over. And then reverse peeling down. Trying to push every single vertebrae into the mat. Roll out to neutral, but don't go too crazy. Roll out to neutral, keep everything in line, and then bring the arms back up and over. Let's do one more with the breathing this time. Breath in, breath out to go up. Breath in, arms up and over. Even though you're breathing in, do not allow those ribs to flare. Think about all those other things we just talked about, and then reverse peeling for the breath out. And breathing in, bringing the arms over. I've realised what it is actually, my hair gets stuck on the mat. That's my excuse anyway. Okay, so now looking at our straight bridge, I'm going to bring my feet ever so slightly closer towards my hips. The spine stays in neutral. It's the same as our hip hinge. In fact, it is a hip hinge, but it's not so much a hinge. It's more, it is a hinge, but you're opening out this angle at the front of the hips. By being from this position, you're just pushing down through the feet. Now we're opening out to that 180 degrees. It is actually a reverse, sort of upside down, very strange hip hinge. So if I'm at 180 when I'm at the top, and then I'm coming back to that, almost that position as we pitch forwards. It was a less of an angle at forwards when we were standing. I'm going to shut up now. Up to the top. Thinking about as you come back down, it feels almost like you are arching that back, but we're focusing on keeping the spine in its neutral shape, especially that lower back. Obviously the upper body doesn't work because your head's staying on the floor. If you wanted to work a little bit harder, for about another 3, arms up to the ceiling, palms facing each other. When you lower your hips, resist. Don't just switch off those buttocks and come crashing back down. Resist. Think about the feet, the weight through the feet. Think about those knees staying quite close together. One more, aligned after 3. Let's do one more, making it 4. Good job, and then relax all the way down. Fantastic. Great, we're going to sit ourselves up. We're coming onto our sides for the side bridge, which is working the big muscles down the side of the back. Very important in supporting the spine. But again, the muscles that we don't generally use that much, and we don't tend to do this this movement as a strength movement, even in class. So sort of line your hips up and your spine up with the back edge of the mat. This is a little bit tough on the shoulders, but do what you can. Bring that underneath that elbow that you're leaning on. Make sure it's underneath your elbow, and then just let your rib cage collapse like we did when we were lying on our tummies earlier on. Feet and knees are bent, heels are in line with your spine. Now this is the position that we don't want. My spine, if you imagine, think about the plumb line. So this plumb line going through my nose, through my chin, there's this lovely curve at the moment. We don't want that. We want it to be a beautiful straight line. So lift up your rib cage as much as you can. Now we're activating those big muscles at the side of the back. Then bring that elbow in a little bit more. If it's too far away, you will really strain your shoulder. Bring that elbow in, tuck it in a little bit. This can also get quite necky, so allow your head to relax towards the floor, or turn and look towards the floor, towards your mat. Imagine a straight line, pubic bone all the way up through the centre, out through your nose, out through the top of your head, and then we're just going to lift the hips up and lower, but hover. Only about 5 of these. As I said, it's very strong. If you can manage this bit, please do, only for 5, and then if it's too much on your shoulder for the second part, by all means lie down. Good, if you're okay there, we're going to take the hips up, we're going to take the top arm up, we're going to straighten out that top leg. About between 6 and 10, lifting and lowering of that top leg. Beautiful straight line across your shoulder. So this can be done lying down if it's too much for that shoulder. Take the arm up as well. But even when you're lying down on your side, lift that side away from the mat, exactly as we've been doing in class. So none of it's touching, actually just my shoulder and then my hip. Otherwise everything else is clear. Good, hopefully you did that right amount when you were up on your elbow. Let's swap to the other side. So as always, one shoulder might be a little bit stronger than the other. So start with the elbow underneath your shoulder-ish. Make sure your feet are in line, knees are stacked, hips are stacked as well. You don't want to be rocked back here. Then allow that underneath side ribs to collapse and everything. And it feels all squished up anyway, so you don't want to be working there for too long. Then lift the rib cage up. Get that straight line up through the centre of your body. I feel like I should get a t-shirt actually with a straight line down the middle. That'd be very, very telling, wouldn't it? And then we're going to bring that elbow in a little bit more. Turn your head and/or just let your head relax, otherwise it's going to get too necky. And then from there we're just lifting the hips up. Feel like all the work is coming from around. You could put your hand there if you can reach. You'll really feel those big strong muscles in your back. It's what creates the V shape in a bodybuilder. And they're attached to the hip and the spine lower down. So again, all part of the support system. About 5, I think that was about 5. Staying up if you can, straighten that top leg, take the top arm to the ceiling, lifting and lowering. Not too high with that leg, keep the hips stacked. Imagine that plumb line again coming out to the top of your head. The alternative here is to lie down, keeping the hips stacked, keeping that underneath waist so lifted. I've got a huge gap here. Not a huge gap, but a big old gap. Fantastic, well done. Great, sitting yourselves up. A couple of things on your tummy. I'm going to put my legs this way round by way of a change. So a bit of scapular endurance on the tummy. So we've done our quadruped, we've done our side bridge, we've done our straight bridge and our peeling bridges. We're about to do scapular endurance. We've got 4 more exercises basically. Scapular endurance and the Sphinx. So scapular endurance is all about, it's another postural exercise, but keeping the muscles, keeping the strength and building the endurance in the muscles around your shoulder blades so that they stay in the correct place against your rib cage wall at the back. So legs are hip width apart, arms down by your side with the backs of your hands on the floor. Really nice and relaxed. The tip of your nose just touching your mat. Just connect your ribs to your hips a little bit. Draw your belly button in slightly, but we're not going to be working too hard here, as in we're not going to be moving around too much, but just give your lower back especially a bit of gentle support there. All we're going to do, allow your shoulders to round and collapse forwards as much as possible. So I call this Quasimodo shoulders. You would be really rounded. Imagine you're creating a shallow semicircle from one shoulder to the other. Lift the back of the head and neck up very slightly, and then the movement is just to lift those shoulders up to create a straight line rather than a semicircle. So from one shoulder, one t-shirt sleeve to the other across the other side, across my collarbone. My collarbone is now nice and parallel to the floor, and then allow those shoulder tips to relax forwards again. You may or may not be touching the floor with your shoulder tips. I can touch equally both sides. Don't worry if that doesn't happen for you. Just try and be aware of that your shoulders are level, so you haven't got one up here and the other one touching the floor. And again, the same way, when you open up the tips of your shoulders, straighten out that collarbone if you like, feel like you're sliding your shoulder blades towards each other. You're not squeezing them together, but you're sliding them towards each other as if you're closing the curtains. And the middle of the curtains, where they're going to meet, is your spine. Have your hands and your wrists especially nice and heavy. No elbows bending, no triceps joining in with this one. And you might start to feel a little bit of fatigue. I'm getting a bit of a quiver going on now. Brilliant. And that's it for that one. So then let's come up onto our elbows again. And back to our not collapsing at the beach position. We need our beautiful rosebud, the rosebud on top of the stem of your spine, lifting up out of those ribs. And this is just, it's a chest pop, it's called the Sphinx. We're trying to lift, it's a very subtle movement. We're trying to draw the chest through the arms, pulling the elbows and the hands along the mat a little bit. It's like you're a slug and you're trying, it's not a very nice analogy, I know. You're trying to slide your hands along the mat and draw forwards. And actually what we're trying to achieve at the same time is a folding over of that upper back. Again, it's that ribcage spine, that's our weakest link in the kinetic chain, because it's generally just too tight, and because we spend too much time, here when we want to be, that's why we're trying to go back the other way. So just holding that for a little bit. If that lower back is starting to get a little bit niggly, and you might do if you're not holding on to anything there, just draw the belly button gently towards the spine, activate your pelvic floor. So reaching through, holding it for 20, 30 counts if you can, trying to just lift up through the spine as well. That's quite strong. Whew. Well done, fantastic. Come up onto a seated position. So rotation of the spine. Our second to last movement actually. In order for the spine to be healthy and to be able to move in all these different positions that we've shown today, we want to be able to just move it in all those different positions. Rotation is a massive part of that. Rotation is something that we do every day, but we're very one-sided with it, and we don't necessarily train it enough. So that's what we're going to look at today. Let's just go for the feet flexed. In fact, I might go this way to start again. So I'm going to have my feet flexed. You could have straight legs or bend the knees, but I want you to be really right on top of your sit bones with your spine in its natural curves. Keeping the legs squeezed together, keeping the feet flexed. We're just turning head and shoulders and around your waist, and you're just touching one side with your hands and then the other side. And what I want you to notice quite subtly, maybe carry on with the body but keep your head facing forwards, which is also a good exercise. Notice if you're ending up with one foot in front of the other or one knee lower than the other. If you are, it's because your pelvis is joining in. So keep those legs absolutely still, just rotating in that upper body. Turning the head as well. And like I say, if you keep your head forwards, that again is a great exercise to differentiate the different sections. So quite often, if you are gonna twist and reach for something, you wouldn't be looking over there. You'd be looking at the thing. So you need your spine to be able to wrap around itself, if that makes sense, but without everything going all at once. Great. So that's just a bit of mobility there. Then let's just cross one leg over the other, sitting up really nice and tall. Take the opposite hand to the knee. Sorry, I'm going to swap over legs. This is my tighter side on the hip, so it's a little bit stronger on this side. Taking the opposite hand across to the knee and pulling it into the centre a little bit. Ideally, again, you're sitting really nice and upright. If you want that leg to be a little bit further away, that's absolutely fine. You could also do this seated on a chair. If you're seated on the chair, both legs squeezed together. The spare hand
goes behind you, helps you to sit really nice and upright, and then we're going to turn and look over that shoulder. Pulling the knee in, so I'm creating a bit of torque, a bit of torsion between my lower body and my upper body, and the floor as well, and that leg. Coming back to the centre, make sure you're breathing and relaxing, and then just round the back. I'm going to move this way so that you can see that as well. When I look back on this again, because the camera is pretty much straight in front of me, not quite, but you'll be able to see whether I'm leaning or not. Hopefully you can't see any leaning. Staying on the same side, one more time. So sitting really nice and upright, pulling that knee across, placing the spare hand behind you to help you. Push down into the floor and then rotate. Think about sit bones. Think about trying to keep them as evenly weighted as they were when you were sitting facing forwards. Breathing. Try not to fight it. Come back to the centre. Take that nice rounded back. This is like you're hanging off of your knee. Feels really good actually. It's a Garuda move I haven't done for ages. Great. Swapping over legs. Sitting up nice and tall. I'm going to stay on this side for this one. Opposite hand on the outside of that knee, just pulling it across a little bit, so across towards your midline, spare hand goes behind you, sit really upright. Notice now, how is that weight on the sit bones? When you turn, try not to let it change. Breathe. And come back to the centre. Round the back, hang back a little bit, scoop that tummy in. Fantastic. Last one, sitting tall, hand behind you and turning. Whew. Make sure you're breathing. Back to the centre, rounding out that back. Wonderful. The last thing is full deep squats, and we're going to try and get into them from the floor. And now it really isn't something that everyone can do, but it's definitely something that will affect the health of your spine if you are more comfortable with it, because it connects everything all together. It's naturally something that we can do, especially as children, but we lose the ability as we get older. Not everyone, but the vast majority of us. So I'm going to go into it from here. So I've got my knees nice and wide, almost as wide as my yoga mat. I've curled my toes under. I'm going to lift my knees off slightly and just walk my hands back. Now, because of my tight Achilles and my ankles, my heels won't go down flat. So maybe if I have my feet slightly wider, yeah, I'm almost there. And then I have to actually sort of have a little rock from side to side to get my feet flat. Some of you will be able to just go straight into that position, and that's fantastic if you can. If you're finding yourself just in this crouch and the heels are really lifted off, try and approach it from a different way. So again, feet and knees nice and wide. Lift the hips up this time. Walk your hands back until your heels go flat, and then come at it from a different angle and try and drop your bottom down. Now this is actually quite good for me. I don't know if it's because I did class yesterday or not, but normally I would fall backwards at this point. In an ideal world, you're not as rounded over as I am. That's because I'm trying not to fall backwards. And if I showed you, this is actually a bit too much, but I would be amazing now, although my feet would be too close together. So really half of this would be ideal. If I have my heels on here, oh, there you go. So that's how some people are comfortable, and it's meant to be a resting position. This feels great now. I feel like I could stay here all day. My hips are relaxed, my knees are relaxed. So the thing for me that holds me back from here is my Achilles and my heels, but it's also the shape of my spine. Although I'm slightly rounded, it feels balanced. Again, the spine, when we're upright, we've got the natural curves that way. When we're here,
it's natural for that pelvis to tuck under and for your back to almost be quite straight. So watch this space. Maybe one day I'll be able to come into this position without a huge great yoga block to help me. So hopefully that has resonated. Thank you so much for joining me, and please let me know in the comments how you found the class. Thank you.